Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and I trust the week's gone well. I'm away actually from Monday evening. I'm going to Poland for an EU Africa summit, and then I'm in Milan the following week on Monday and Tuesday. So you will excuse me, I hope. I did an interview yesterday evening with Beatrice Marshall at CCTV regarding the visit of John Kerry to Africa and then the subsequent visit of the Chinese Premier. And do have a look, the link is uploaded on the front page and under Rich Wrap-Ups. I'd like to thank His Excellency Ambassador Augusto Rufo di Calabria and his wife Princess Tana for a very wonderful lunch yesterday in their wonderful home in a forest. It was beautiful, it really was. Food was good as well. Home thoughts. I'll start with Arthur Rimbaud. I've stretched ropes from steeple to steeple, garlands from window to window, golden chains from star to star, and I dance. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of the drummers, Fairmont, Mount Kenya, and they really had some good groove, those folks. And another photograph I found on Photo Booth of a drum circle. And then thinking of tourism and all the lack of it, and Mombasa, I'll put up that photograph I took of the sunset in Mombasa. And in a couple of days I've taken a photograph of the sunset at Lugard Falls in the Savo. Political reflections. US signals Putin not to move against new NATO members. Jet fighters from the UK, Denmark, France, Poland will begin flying air patrols over the Baltic states tomorrow as part of collective defense measures, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization said in a statement today. Canadian jets are deploying to Romania as part of NATO efforts to reassure allies in Central and Eastern Europe, the alliance said. The US will defend its NATO allies, no ifs, ands or buts. That was Biden. Secretary of State said at the conference yesterday that unlike Ukraine, which isn't a NATO member and where alliance nations have ruled out war, a move against a treaty ally would have grave consequences. We have to make it absolutely clear to the Kremlin that NATO territory is inviolable. We will defend every single piece of it. Under Article 5 of the 1949 North Atlantic Treaty, the US and all other members would consider an armed attack on any one of them an attack on them all. Lots of interesting comments. I think this is also about shattering NATO and potentially shattering the EU, because if we were to do something in the Baltics, if he were to do something in the Baltics and we did not respond, that's the end of Article 5, that's the end of NATO. Potentially this is not just about re-establishing some kind of Russian empire. Hadley said it's also quite frankly an effort to see how far he can go to disrupt NATO and perhaps even disrupt the European Union. Angela Merkel said, we in Europe are very much in agreement that a military resolution of the problems cannot happen. It's not on the agenda, war is no solution, and so we have to find other ways. It's getting very hardball over there, and evidently a big piece of Ukraine is set to remain, in my view, well, eastern Ukraine, a kind of dystopian grey zone. Ukraine has said its government forces are continuing an anti-terror operation in the eastern city of Sloviansk. Pro-Russian gunmen apparently have shot down at least 2 helicopters, reportedly capturing 1 pilot. So you can see it's extremely fluid, fast-moving. I think, for Putin it's as much a red line as it is for NATO. NATO, of course, has had the advantage of expanding its territory, whereas Russia had been shrinking. But I think what Putin is saying is that this is the red line. And, when you look at it objectively, he has a point, I'm afraid. I like this photograph, which was tweeted by Obama Foodorama, POTUS with the sushi master Jiro Ono, which is where the president had his sushi with Shinzo Abe. Xi Jinping has made his first presidential visit to what he called the front line against terrorism in the restive region of Xinjiang. 2 days before Xi toured Kashgar, he vowed in a Politburo meeting to resolutely crack down on terrorism and separatism with high intensity to safeguard national security. I'll put up a photograph which was released on April 30 by Xinhua, showing the Chinese President Xi Jinping visiting a mosque. And refer you back to something I wrote at the end of last year. I said I see the pivot to Asia as the encirclement of China, then the shrinking of its operating theatre, then lighting the tinderbox that is the periphery, and Xinjiang might well morph into China's Afghanistan, is what I said then. And I still think it is the soft underbelly. Beijing is unhappy at the US State Department's 2013 country report on terrorism published last month, which said China's cooperation on fighting terrorism remained marginal. Xi said China would deal a crushing blow to terrorists and deploy a strike-first strategy. So we can see that's heating up as well. And, I refer to the point that, unlike in Crimea, Chinese can't offer a referendum to these folks on their periphery because they know they'd vote to Belov. And that is a geopolitical conundrum for them. That's why they've been, in some cases, ambiguous in their support for the Russians. If you get a chance, have a look at that inside story I did with Hazim Sika about Can Africa curb its illicit cash flow. Human Rights tweeted their brief and attached a photograph, which I'll attach. It's quite visually arresting. And then the Enough Project is saying, while the conflict could appear to be religious in nature, referring to the CAR, behind the headlines, drivers of violence in the CAR, argues that religion is an outcome, not a cause of the conflict. Past and current crises are the result of an internal struggle for state power, revenge, and access to natural resources of diamonds, ivory, oil, and timber. An audio has been released of the final words spoken between the air traffic control and the cockpit of the missing Malaysian MH370. That's been released. Goodbye, Malaysian 370. The flight disappeared without a trace. It's certainly, in my opinion, not where they've been looking for it in the further reaches of the Indian Ocean. The euro, last time I checked, 138.58. The dollar index 79.58. Dollar yen 102.44. Swiss C 0.88. Pound very strong 168.84. Aussie 0.9272. India rupee is firmed up 60.19. Last biggest weekly advance since March 28. I think it's going to 57.50 on a conclusive win for Narendra Modi. South Korean won 10.31.20. This is a 6-year high. Rial 223.34. Egyptian pound now above 7 at 70091. South African rand back below 10.50 at 10.49.42. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart, trading a little bit like David Gower used to play cricket, laid back. US Central Bank reduced monthly asset buying to $45 billion on April 30, with the 4th straight $10 billion cut. Policymakers said further reductions in measured steps are likely. Euro dollar 138.58. Draghi will obviously start to try and keep a hold on it to below 139. Sterling, my near-term target is 173.50. I'll put up a 1-year chart. You can see that I wasn't wrong on 12th of August 2013 when I put out a buy signal. I said, how does an investor play this recovery? I think you need to be net long sterling. If I remember correctly, it was about 153 when I wrote that, if not lower. Gold, 1-year chart, 1283.05. I think breakdown risks are elevated. Declining for a 5th-day. Prices are going to retreat 1.6% this week. Gold still remains up 6.7% in 2014, but I think 2014 will be a second down year for gold. Crude oil back below that key 100 level, 99.39. Prices have decreased 1.2% this week. I think it's very toppy above 100. I think the fair equilibrium price is around 90. Al Mirkab Capital SPC, a company controlled by Qatar's royal family, made a cash offer buying Heritage Oil at £924 million. Heritage Oil were the ones who found the oil in Uganda. India Rupee, I'll put up a 6-month chart, lost trading at 60.19, and as I said, I'm looking for a move to 57.50 on a decisive Narendra Modi outcome. Sub-Saharan Africa, the Secretary of State, John Kerry, has started a 5-day visit to Africa today with a focus on security that includes reining in the conflict in South Sudan. I think he's there, he's landed there already, previously in Addis Ababa. He's trying to persuade East African foreign ministers that a peacekeeping force must be swiftly deployed in South Sudan. A legitimate force that has the ability to make peace needs to be on the ground as soon as possible. The Ethiopian, Ugandan, and Kenyan foreign ministers said they must work out the details on the timing, the manner, and the size of the force, said Kerry. Kerry's trip will also take him to Angola, DRC, and clearly he will also be making arrangements for the first US Africa Leaders Summit, which Obama has planned for August. Now, and this was what CCTV were asking me about, was, coincidentally, Premier Lee Keqiang is to visit Ethiopia, the African Union headquarters, Nigeria, Angola, and Kenya. Obviously, Kenya and Nigeria were the missing links in Kerry's visit. And then what I found interesting is the attempt to recalibrate and reinterpret the China-Africa relationship. One of the officials is saying the main characteristic, by the way, Keqiang is destined, he is expected to speak at the 24th World Economic Forum on Africa in Abuja. I'll come to what's been going on there in a minute. Going back to the point I was making about, recalibrating the tone and the message around China-Africa, the Chinese officials are saying main characteristic of China-Africa cooperation is a mutual benefit, equality. China has never called itself a donor country. We are a partner of Africa. And then South China Daily is saying that more than 60 agreements will be signed, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Angola, and Kenya. Deputy Minister of Commerce said yesterday that China would focus more on the livelihood of the African public. We are paying more attention to livelihood issues. This is what African nations need. Over the past years, China focused on building landmark architecture. We will still be doing so in the future, but we will also keep a closer look at issues relating to the public. Sudan's pound slumped to a record against the dollar in the black market as the war in South Sudan threatens to curb inflows from oil shipments. Currency changed hands at 9.1 pounds per dollar yesterday in the capital. This compares with 8.2 on March 31st. The official rate is about 5.7. Sudan has a severe foreign currency crisis. Our currency inflows are lower than our needs. Transit fees mitigate this problem and also increase the central bank's ability to support the local currency. Throughout April, official exchange officers weren't offering dollars. This is Abdullah Ali, a black market trader in Khartoum, said by phone yesterday. That's why the rate got so high. I'll put up a photograph of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Nabi Pillay, meeting with the former Vice President of South Sudan, Riek Machar. The Enough Project is saying appropriate international forces need to be deployed to South Sudan to protect civilians, which was the point I made in my response to that article in The Economist last weekend. South African oil share just below a record high, up 7.15% in 2014. Anadarko has halted South Africa oil spending, pending clarity on the oil law. We have suspended our expenditures in South Africa until the petroleum law and fiscal terms are more clear. We are just looking for a little more clarity. What's going to happen with the fiscal regime down there before we invest large dollars in South Africa? And that's all about policy making uncertainty and how quickly it can turn off the investment tab. Dollar rand 10.50, 125. I think it heads to 10 before it goes to 11. Egyptian pound above 7 has not been above this level on a sustainable basis for quite a while. The Egyptian stock market rallied 1.3% yesterday. It's up 23.17% in Africa's best. The Nigeria all shares down 4.2% in 2014. A bomb explosion near Nigeria's capital Abuja left at least 9 people dead and 11 others injured yesterday. The country's emergency agency said blast occurred near the location where on April 14 car bomb killed at least 75 people and injured more than 100 others. There is no change in plans to hold the World Economic Forum on Africa in Abuja this month, spokesman Alem Tedeneke said in an email response to questions late yesterday. Witnesses says that moments before the explosion, a man had parked the bomb-laden car and walked away, and I'll put up a photograph of the car on fire. And refer you back to the 22nd of April when I wrote that the comment by the leader of Nigeria's Boko Haram, Abu Bakr Shekau, caught my attention. "We are in your city," he said, addressing Nigeria's President Goodluck. That comment could have been made by the Al-Shabaab as well. Both Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, I wrote, represent a risk that David Lipton did not touch on, that being asymmetric risks. The recent bombings in Abuja and last year's attack on Westgate confirmed the potency of asymmetric risks. African markets have taken these risks in their stride. They might stumble if these asymmetric risks ratchet higher. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of Westgate when it was on fire, and that symbolizes the asymmetric risk threat. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 5.45% in 2014, but has fallen 7.327% since February the 19th. China's CONOC expects to start first crude output at its Ugandan Kingfisher oil field in late 2018, nearly a year later than expected, as foreign companies developing the country's oil sector struggle with infrastructure bottlenecks, a company spokesman said. Stelios gave me a call. We spent an afternoon Googling Africa, African aviation, African economics, as the FastJet chief executive Ed Winter. Tensions between two Congos as Brazzaville has deported 50,000 to the DRC. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of a boat on the Congo River between Brazzaville and Kinshasa. Coming to Kenya, the Treasury apparently will make an announcement on its program for marketing the Eurobond as early as next week. This is Henry Rotich, quoted in Reuters. Of course, it was in 2006 that Seychelles became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa, other than South Africa, to issue bonds. It's the flavor, it's very de rigueur right now. And I wrote about this on the 20th of January when I was saying, our big Wembley Stadium moment with the Eurobond is now imminent. That was 20th of January. We're here in May, but I think it looks a lot closer. I incline to the view that the Kenya government should slot the Eurobond market the full $2 billion. This Eurobond issue will release the pressure cooker. That is the domestic bond and interest rate markets. We should see a good rally in interest rates. Kenya Commercial Bank reported that Q1 profit before tax accelerated to 33.72%. That significantly outpaced consensus estimates, and I think KCB Group will set a fresh all-time high as early as today. KCB up 3.703% in 2014. Crown Paints reported full-year profit after tax accelerated 60.13%. Revenue up 16.38%. Other income up 61.956%. Profit before tax up 49.191%. Profit after tax up 60.13%. Full-year dividend at £1.75 a share. Compelling results. Share prices rallied 20% in anticipation, and it's probably fairly priced now on trading P of 10, but the low base effect makes it an interesting share. Liberty Kenya could buy out Dar es Salaam-based medical insurance firm Strategis as part of an ongoing restructuring of its Tanzanian business. Liberty Kenya has soared 46.179% in 2014 and to an all-time high. The Kenya shilling last at 86.85. The Nairobi all-share fractionally off a record, up 10.5964%. This year, the Nairobi NSE 20 also in positive territory, but lagging the all-share. It's up 0.4465%. There's a link for every listed share. And then I like this photograph of Briatore's villa at the Lion and the Sun Resort in Malindi. Wednesday we had a high volume day. Safaricom especially had its second highest volume session of the year. Liberty, which is up 46.179% this year. CIC up 68.9%. CFC Stanbic up 48.275% this year. All set fresh all-time closing highs. and there's plenty of interest. So if you want to track the stock market in real time, just register on rich.co.uk, get a password, and then go to Rich Live. You're off to go. Once again, I hope you had a great week. As I mentioned, I'll be away for next week and the Monday and Tuesday of the following week. I'll do my best to keep things updated, but I might struggle to do the podcast. So really grateful that you stopped by. Thank you.